What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to more Black Desert. So, throughout the year of 2023, I want to revisit a lot of my old guide videos that I made from last year and just update them and just tell you guys what's new. And obviously, things change throughout the year, so that's why we're doing it. So, today's video, what we're going to be talking about is my CP node setup. Now, the last one we did, I believe it was like at 4 something CP, like 400 or like 405. So not much has really changed. However, I have swapped up some nodes, and how I want to change this around and update it is tell you, I think, what currently is the important nodes and what I think are worth picking up. But before I show you anything, usually all these nodes are what I would recommend for you guys to do is pick things you actually need. So like, for example, if you are gathering to cook them and stuff, cooking, alchemy, process, and whatnot, I would pick the things that would help you in the long run. So like, let's say your goal is to make Valencia meals or literally any meals, right? And you can collect certain materials, but your workers get other materials. I would recommend doing that instead of like copying someone else's nodes. But I'm just going to give you some pointers on what I think are relevant nodes. And yeah, so usually I have my map on this so I just see everything. But I believe for the sake of simplicity and for like a new player looking at all of this, you probably are mega confused. I know if I was a new player and I saw this, I'm like, what am I looking at? So I believe to make this a little bit simpler, then we'll just look at the nodes instead. All right, so just to give you a little bit of a background of if you are a beginner, how does this work? You have contribution points right here, right? The number right here, contribution. You get that by literally playing the game, using byproducts from whatever life skill you're doing, turn it into contribution points, and you get more. And so what you do with them is when you first start off the game, chances are you're starting off at Western Guard Camp. I know nowadays they have a thing where it's like, where do you want to start the game? The Mountain of Eternal Winter or Western Guard Camp? I would always recommend starting off here if this is like your first time playing the game, because it just allows you to get to the easy town hubs more often. Whereas if you're starting at the Mountain of Eternal Winter, you're starting down somewhere down in this region, which I believe to be a little bit more challenging. Like, I've done it myself. I've started a new character there, and you're not going to have any troubles. It's just if you're starting out, you're kind of like away from the beginner level areas. So I think this is more of like a catch up and for advanced players. So anyway, with that said, nodes, how do they work? You see all these things right here? If they are red, that means they're connected. And if they are not, then that means they are not connected. And you put workers on your nodes to collect items such as like chicken meat and potatoes and whatnot. Every node is different, by the way. So always get the things you need, but let's start off with, I think, things that are relevant. So in the Balenos region, which is Ulvia and Belia, there's a lot of ores and timbers. So I would always recommend or prioritize those as a beginner. Timbers, which is wood and stuff, usually sell for a lot of silver on the market, whether you sell it like as tier 1, 2, or 3 materials. So let me clarify something before we start on. So let me actually see. I don't know. Maple. So let's start off with these. We'll start saying by timbers are tier 1 materials, right? And then you process them into planks, and then these are tier 2, and then plywoods are tier 3. So for making things simple, let's just call it that. And so when you get your workers, you're going to get the timbers, and then sometimes you get planks, right? And then you can choose to process it into tier 3 and then make more money and sell it if you want to, or you could just sell it as timbers. And either way, I think depending on how much you make or like your level of mastery in processing, You could process more later on and then get more silver out of that. But I think things with the highest market value, if you're just selling the raw materials, is something you should take into account. And so timbers are very high into that one. So in Olvia, there's not really much here. The way I would do connections early on is you see this little river down here, right? I would take this as the baseline, and if you're on the left side of this little river, I would connect things to Olvia. Obviously, you could do that a little bit differently, but connecting as a new player when you have limited CP is harder. So, things I think are pretty relevant are like iron ore. You're probably going to need that later. And I know there are people that have millions of iron ore, but trust me, you might want to get that node started early on. And let's say a year from now, when you finally think you might actually need it, you just have like hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So I think it's worth it. Other relevant ones, I believe, are chicken meat and eggs and potatoes. These are good for cooking, and generally they are good for boosting your contribution points. So when you cook, you could have the option of turning them into witches' delicacies over here. And then when you exchange 10 for contribution XP and cooking, that's a fast way to just boost your contribution if you're going for that one. So cooking, like, very easy to make items, the low tier ones that probably won't sell as much, are things that I think are worth getting on early, so you could just boost contribution. So another egg node and meat node. Chicken meat is very important. Eggs are very important as well for cooking. And then everything else here is just timbers, and you kind of have to look at the price on which timber nodes or which wood nodes are important and higher prices, which I think are basically everything at this point. So obviously some are higher than the others, but for the most part, timbers are very high in value. But if there are any two that I'd recommend a newer player to get, it would be the chicken meat, eggs, and iron ore. And then timber comes after that one. So now we're going into the Serendia region, which is Heidel and Glish. Now, this one has a lot of, like, miscellaneous nodes that I think are worth it. So basically, if we were to... It's a little dark here. Okay, so let's take this little mountain right here. And once you pass through the Heidel Pass over here, that's when you would get into the Serendia. So anything from here all the way to this little mountain over here, and then down here. Basically, like, anything within the small circle is Serendia. So things I think are important are the special nodes, which are certain things that you won't have by default. So these are excavation nodes, and the way you unlock it is going by to the node manager and then giving them some, like, energy or something to talk to them, and then they'll tell you about the excavation. And I believe traces are extremely important. Whether you need it now or you don't, it's always worth getting, because eventually, if you plan on doing alchemy, it'll be worth it. So, like, you see all these trace nodes right here. They're used for alchemy, and it's good to have them later because most of them are permanently sold out on the market, at least here on NA. So if you're gonna use them for, like, elixirs and whatnot, potions, chances are you're gonna have to make them yourself. So it's good to have these nodes running early on. But aside from that, things like where is it? Special or cooking honey is I wouldn't say it's exclusive. It used to be, but now some other towns also have it. But cooking honey is a bottleneck for some people because it's a very limited resource that can only be gotten on certain nodes. Aside from that, there's a lot of ores and timbers here as well. So what I have, as you go further down into the Odraxia region or whatever, Duvinkroon, things get more expensive. So I'd recommend not going past the, like, swamp area until you have a lot more CP. So anything down past here is generally something you do when you have extra. But other than that, easy nodes to get are like flax, wheat, and pumpkins, and more wheat over here. The reasoning why is if you just sell them as raw materials, the market price for these nodes are generally higher than like the other ones in general. So as you saw, we have like pumpkins, those sell for quite a bit. Wheat nodes, not so much flax anymore, but sometimes the price fluctuates on it depending on, like, I don't know, is there an event or something? But generally wheat and like ores and all that stuff, you use them for basic cooking. So like if you wanted grilled bird meat, by the way, I know I have like 410,000 of them, and I'm probably gonna have that for the rest of my BDO career, because you definitely won't use that. I use it for cooking and then getting the byproducts and then turning it into contribution points. So that's why I have so many. It's not that I actually need them. So cooking honey is definitely something you'll need. Wheats and flax are pretty good. Flax is like kind of questionable at this point, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, and especially ore nodes like iron ore, they have a high market value just because ever since the start of the game, they've always been pretty relevant. So those are the things I have. You can see what I have connected over here, but in the point of what should you get, pumpkins, cooking honey, the excavation node, and then down here is like some iron ore, and like I think down here is an excavation. Trace of origin is very expensive, and you're gonna need that a lot for alchemy. Trace of hunting is less relevant, but I mean there's only limited trace nodes, so it's probably worth getting. And then going down here is the timbers. This is a very expensive node. This is an extra one, you get it like over time, but if you have the extra CP, I think it's worth it. Let's go into Calpheon. This one kind of changes a lot for me. Every now and then I either take out nodes and place them somewhere else, or just put them back here. So over here, more barley and wheat, as we talked about earlier in the Serendia region. Then we have another timber node. Birch timber is worth a lot. So in Calpheon, I believe I have about 665,000 of them. The base value to sell them is very high. And like if you turn them into tier 2 and 3 nodes, or processed, you can get a lot out of it. It's just that I don't have enough time, and there's not enough time in the day to process them. I'm pretty sure, like, if I were to spend a week doing it, I could just get all of this done. But sometimes I like to actually play the game, so yeah. Wheat and barley nodes, very expensive, high end. On the market scale, birch timber. Timber's always very high. One over here that I'm not really sure. Tin ore, I think I used it at some point. Tin ore has a high base value, which I think is important. Another timber node. This one is kind of like irrelevant. I don't even remember why I have the mushrooms. I think it's because I was doing some sort of alchemy with it at some point, and then that's why I needed it, but I definitely don't need it now. So yeah, you can just get the timbers and ores and wheats here, same as the usual. So that's what I have. There's a lot of timbers here. Back in the day, I used to have Keplin connected with like all the way down to the Marie's Cave, and these used to give pine, or they do give iron, pine, and like there's a few other things along with coal over here. I think down in the Marnie's lab it gives coal or something. Yeah, so these used to be important, and I think as a new player, if you are looking for it, these are definitely nodes worth getting, investing down into Marie Cave and up to Marnie's lab. Now let me show you. The thing is, it's kind of expensive connecting it, because you're gonna have to go like around, so you're gonna have to go up into here and then connect it, and then there's a few nodes to connect, so that's like what, 10-15 CP. So I do think like it's a very specific, or something that you have to know you want to get it, but other than that, it is worth it if you need it. While we're in the Calpheon region, I have nodes over here collecting fish, and do I think these are worth it? Not really, because you just get a lot of dried fish, and The nodes are cheap, but each one takes like 3 to 4 hours. So basically, they all go into Porphyria, and you see how I have a lot of dried fish over here. All of these. So back in the day, this was maybe, what, 5 years ago or something? 4 or 5 years ago? I was always like, pet food is important, and then not many people knew how to make it back in the day. And so I would have to make it myself, and it was kind of expensive. So obviously nowadays, you just, if you need it, buy it off the market. But back in the day, I would have to make it myself, and I was just like, okay, so what's the best way to do it? And then collecting fish nodes over here. They are kind of expensive, so like they are worth something. However, the time to get them like from here to here is like a few hours of real time. So is it worth it? I feel like there are better nodes, but back in the day, I needed it for pet food, and I just was too lazy to ever take off these nodes because they're kind of cheap, so might as well just keep them. And if I ever need it, I can probably make an infinite supply. Well, not infinite, but like for the rest of my BDO career, I will never be short on pet food if I ever need it. So that's why I have it. The expensive ones are probably the dried octopus and things that I guess that are worth more than like 2,000. So yeah, either way, use them for pet food. That's it. Probably have more than I'll ever need, but we're good. So down in the Trent area, I think Trent is one of those things where if you have more CP than you really know what to do with, then you kind of put it in here. Other than that, like some of the timbers are actually worth a little bit. So like I use it for spirit leaves, and those are kind of, they're used for alchemy, and I use them, or they sell for a lot, like 21,000 is kind of big. And then cedar timbers have a very high market value along with fir. So like even if you were to sell these at like the tier 1 base raw material, you can get quite a bit out of it over time. But yeah, aside from that, that's what I have. I just have nodes and lots of timbers I could process. So going down into the Grana area, I don't really have too much. I don't think the Kamasylvia region is really worth it too much. What I have connected down here is Ash Forest, because I was actually grinding there at some point for Deboreka necklaces. Do I think it's worth it? Absolutely not, dude. It feels awful. However, the Loopy Tree Forest, I needed to sap at some point for, I don't remember what I was making, but I needed the sap. And then you get timbers and planks out of it, so that's good. Tooth Fairy Forest has a Trace of Forest node or excavation. I think this one is very important. Trace of Forest is used in a lot of things that I make in particular, but that's it. I don't really think these nodes are worth it. Plus, Tooth Fairy Forest and Tooth Fairy Cabin are places that I grinded when I was going for the Renaros piece. And that's the infinite potion, so that's why I have a level 10 node over here as well. But aside from that, if we look in my Grana storage, we have a lot of timbers and planks. These are not as good, in my opinion, but the tree sap is something I actually use, and the Trace of Forest is something I use as well, and that sells for quite a bit. It's a very important node. If we go down to Odraxia, what do we have? We have Narcion. This is a very good hunting spot. I believe it is the best spot for hunting in the game. Chicken meat and eggs, as we talked about earlier, very important in my opinion. Grape and potatoes, I don't particularly think I need them. It's just I'm kind of lazy. And then here is one that I've been testing recently, nickel and mithril. Mithril is a very important one that I need. However, the node is so slow that I'm not even sure it's worth it, to be honest. So I've had it going for, I don't know, at least 2 months, and I've gotten 17, which is not a lot when you think about it. So is this node worth it? Probably not, to be honest. But yeah, the reason why we have things is eggs and chicken meat, always important. Potatoes, you can just sell them, or you can craft beer with it. So if you're a beginner player and you need stuff to feed your workers, potatoes, you cook them, turn it into beer. Very easy. This is the only material you need. Everything else you can buy off the market. And then, yeah, Like, ooh, grape nodes are actually not really worth much. But either way, cooking, you might need it one day. But the important things I would say are chicken meat, eggs, potatoes. That's about it here. We used to have more connected in Duvenkroon, but I took them all out, I think, as of last time, because I just don't really need it. But I think the ones that are important are down in the Tashira if you need Bracken. This one is pretty good. Other than that, like, I believe there's a trace node. There's a lumber camp over here that gives fur, which I think is worth a lot. It's just connecting all the way down to Duvenkroon is kind of a lot of CP to the point where I don't think it's worth it. But if you need them in particular, this is one route you could do. And yeah, it's an option. I think there might have been a trace node somewhere, but I don't remember. I don't use it. And then Ilton, which is the Mountain of Eternal Winter, which is the newest region as of now. What I have is the I don't have the excavation. I think Trace of Death is worth something. I don't really see myself using it. Actually, let me just check. How much are Trace of Death nodes? 81,000. Okay, maybe not. Like, if you need it, get it, but I don't need it. Cooking honey. Remember when we talked about cooking honey before? That's what I think it's important for. Timber nodes. Birch is worth a lot. Monk's Branch, it's just a bonus. And Jade Starlight Forest. As you guys can see, I have this node at level 10. And the reason why we have that is this is a place for your Labresca helmet. So for all of you grinding out those, what are these things? Embers of Frost. You're going to need that. So things I think are important, the rough jade nodes, the timbers, and cooking honey over here. So if you ever need them, you know where to get them. But either way, Jade Starlight Forest, very important because rough jade is important. Plus, you might as well just get this node to level it, just in case you will grind it eventually. So that's about that. Let's go into the Altinova Mediah region. This one, I would say Mediah is a little on the expensive side on terms of nodes, but a lot of these are either connected to Tariff and or Altinova. So I would say if you take this Tariff node and just make a straight line up from here, or just from this farm, a lot of these things over here are connected to Tariff, whereas anything past this line is probably connected to Altinova. I think that's how I set it up. So things I think are important here are cotton, the two timber nodes over here at the top. Let me see, what else do I have? This excavation right here. Trace of Earth is very expensive. This is a very contested node. So Trace of Earth is something you want to use very regularly. And then zinc. Okay, so yeah, over here, I used to have a lot of potato nodes. I don't think potato is bad. Like, you can still use it if you need it. Cotton is something I used as well, but a lot of these are just timbers. Like the white cedar one is worth a lot just as raw materials, but in Tariff we need a lot of saps for alchemy, and saps just in general are very expensive, so that's why I think these are important to get. And I used to have sky mushrooms. I don't know if it's still running, to be honest, but either way, I needed it at some point a few years ago, and I no longer need it, but I have a lot. But important things pretty much are timbers and saps here. Now, connected to Altinova, there's obviously Altinova is like a mining town, and there's a lot of ores. So things I think are important, I have 1.6 million Elder Tree timber nodes that I'll probably never process, to be honest. That's too much. I wish the game would come out with something like they see people with literally millions of timbers and they're like, maybe we should come up with some system so people can get rid of that and get it out of the game. So overall in Altinova, we have Elder Tree, and the reason why we had it is mostly for the sap, because again, saps are very important for alchemy. You're going to need a lot of them for just various things. and they're kind of worth a lot. So that's why I have them. And down here is just a lot of ores, like raw material ones that I think are important. I do use these, like zinc ore. This has a base price of 4,000 is a lot. And so if you use them, you can just, a lot of iron ore always going to be worth it. Coal as well. But yeah, that's about it. Overall, that's mostly it. I do have some nodes connected, but I think if you are connecting anything in the Valencia region, you shouldn't just copy someone because they have it there. These are nodes that I have because I very specifically use them. So right now I have titanium ore and vanadium ore. I use these for like accessory crafting. And so these are the important ones. Are they really worth it? Not really. You have to kind of know what you're doing with these to make them useful. Like if you were to just get these on your own time, like yeah, it'll make you some money, but then is it really worth it if you have no idea what it's for? No, I think there are nodes that you can get a lot faster over time, and then that would just be better. But like these are for accessory crafting, or monos, I guess you can say. And then back in the day, I had sulfur connected, and then I removed the node. So sulfur is a place that you can get the archaeologist map. And so I was grinding there at some point. Man, it's actually kind of awful, to be honest. I hope they make that into like an Elvia spot. And then you can still get the archaeologist map in a lot of Valencia regions as well. That would be nice. Hopefully in like 2024 or something. But I think that's basically all my nodes. Here are some like extra ones that I think are kind of important. So as you guys know, Ilia Island is for a lot of bartering that I do. Just like bartering, selling good stuff. If you are thinking about getting a carrack in the future, here are some nodes that I would recommend you guys pick up. I no longer need them, but if you guys are planning on doing that, you might want to pick them up. So there are 4 excavation nodes. This island, this one, and I believe these 2. So what they give are blueprints and starlight powder. And what you use these for is for, you see all these blueprints? They are used to craft blue carrot gear, which you only need 10 of them, but if you keep the node running long enough, you just kind of get extras. I wish you could sell them, but you can't. And then starlight powder is basically the equivalent of blackstone, like enhancing materials. So what you would do is get the thingy, and then you see how you need all these materials to craft carrot gear. Yeah, you're gonna need a lot of them, so it's good to have them early on. And if you are enhancing, you need these sunset stones, and they're basically like black stones. You use them to click things and enhance. Very standard. So the problem is it takes so long to make one of these. So if I were to show you, I believe it is like, is it really only 30 minutes? Oh, they must have like changed the timer, because it used to be like 6 hours to make one of them. Well, they changed it. That's good. But either way, you just can't like spam click them. Either way, you shouldn't. It's very expensive in enhancing carrot gear to the point where it's kind of like enhancing real gear or like monos. It's on like a whole boat gear is very expensive just in general. So yeah, that's about it. Eventually, as you all know, we're gonna get the something new region coming out over here, maybe in a few months. I will probably give you an update whether I think these are important or not when it comes out, but as of right now, new region coming out soon, TM, but that's it. And so yeah, you see what we were doing, turning these nodes into like all these timbers that we got. Usually I don't do this. I actually just needed something to do while I was talking about all of it. So that's my node setup connected in every region. I think I got everything. If I missed it, feel free to ask. I have a lot of this stuff going on, and I don't actually know how much I make a day. A lot of these materials I have connected because I actually use them. But I just wanted to give an insight of what I think are important and what I think might be worth getting for like newer players or returning players who have never changed a node setup in like years. So here's what it's at. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching and have a fantastic day. I will see you guys tomorrow. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Would love to see you come back. My goal for these videos is to help players get better at this game, along with returning or new players who are very confused. I know there's a lot of information starting out this game, so that's why I'm here, to help make things a lot easier. So with that said, thanks so much for watching. See you guys tomorrow.